What if the Viltrum Empire never sent just one agent? What if, instead of a single soldier to soften up a world for conquest, they sent two? Two of their most hardened warriors. Two ideologies set on a collision course with a small blue planet caught right in the middle. One would follow the mission to the letter, the other would find something worth fighting for. This is not the story you know. This is something new, something darker. It starts, as it always does, with a boy and a bag of trash. Mark Grayson, 17 years old, is heaving the garbage to the curb when it happens. The bag slips, he overcompensates, and instead of hitting the pavement, the bag flies. Not just a few feet, it rockets into the sky. A black speck against the blue, disappearing into the upper atmosphere. Mark just stares, his mouth hanging open, and from the doorway of his home, a shadow detaches itself. Nolan Grayson, his father, steps into the light. He isn't smiling with relief. He isn't beaming with fatherly pride. His expression is one of cold, calculating satisfaction. A project, finally complete. It's time, is all Nolan says. Later, at the dinner table, the air is thick enough to cut with a knife. Debbie Grayson pushes food around her plate, her eyes never meeting her husband's. She knows. She's always known what he is. But now, seeing the same predatory light in her son's eyes, that's a new kind of terror. Mark is ecstatic, describing how he floated, how he punched a hole through a mountain in the Arctic on a training flight with his dad. "This is amazing," Mark says, his voice buzzing with power. "We can do anything. We can help everyone." Nolan places his fork down. The sound is a period at the end of a sentence. "Helping them, son, is a waste of your potential. These people, they're insects. They live, they breed, they die. They need to be led, ruled. That is our purpose, our birthright." Mark's smile doesn't falter. It just changes. It sharpens. "Our birthright," he repeats, the words tasting right in his mouth. Debbie looks away, a silent hostage at her own dinner table. The indoctrination is over. The weapon is now active. Hundreds of miles away, the sun sets over rolling fields of corn. Here, there is no tension, just the gentle hum of crickets and the smell of fresh earth. A man stands on his porch, his build like that of a mountain. His face is a roadmap of a hard life, dominated by a thick, graying mustache and a deep, jagged scar that cuts from his temple down across a blind right eye. His wife, Sarah, calls him Carl. It's a simple name, an earth name, a name he chose to forget who he used to be. A scream cuts through the peace, not of fear, but of shock. Carl is moving before the sound even registers, a blur of motion. He finds his children, the twins Marcus and Carla, in the barn. They're standing over a twisted wreck of steel that used to be their father's tractor. Carla is holding the engine block in one hand, like it's a toy. Marcus is floating 3 feet off the ground, his eyes wide with disbelief. They look at their father, and for the first time, they don't see a simple farmer. They see the power he's kept coiled inside for 2 decades. That night, Carl gathers his family in the living room. He tells them everything. He tells them of Viltrum, a world of conquerors. He tells them of his mission, a mission he abandoned for love, for a simple life. He tells them his true name, Conquest, a name that tastes like ash in his mouth. "There is another Viltrumite on this planet," he says, his voice a low rumble. "His name is Nolan, and he did not abandon the mission. He has a son, your age, and sooner or later, they will make their move. They will try to break this world." Marcus and Carla look at their hands, these new, impossible weapons. "What do we do?" Marcus asks, his voice barely a whisper. Carl, Conquest, looks at his wife, who nods, her face etched with grim determination. He turns back to his children. "You will train. You will learn what this power means. You are not conquerors. You are guardians. This is our home. And we will be its shield." The call goes out. A coordinated attack. The guardians of the globe, Earth's mightiest heroes, are summoned to their secret headquarters. They arrive ready for a war. They find one, but the enemy isn't who they expect. The doors slide open. Omni-Man is there, and he's not alone. A younger, leaner version of him stands at his side. Mark Grayson. Red Rush is the first to react, a crimson blur. He moves to evacuate, to strategize. He doesn't even see Mark move. There's a sickening crack, a sound like a tree trunk snapping in half. Red Rush hits the ground, his head twisted at an impossible angle. Dead before his body even stops moving. The room freezes. The shock is a physical blow. This isn't happening. And then Omni-Man smiles. Allow me to introduce my son. What follows isn't a fight. It's a systematic execution. War Woman lets out a roar, her mace swinging. Omni-Man catches it. He rips it from her grasp and crushes King Acarus's skull with a single contemptuous swing. Darkwing throws his grappling hook, trying to create distance. Mark is on him in a flash. He doesn't punch. He drives his fingers straight through Darkwing's chest. Clean through. Green Ghost turns intangible, phasing through the floor to escape. Omni-Man grabs her by the hair. He holds her solid and snaps her neck with one hand. It's effortless. It's monstrous. The Immortal is the last one standing. Millennia of combat experience against two beings of unimaginable power. He roars, a primal scream of defiance, and tackles Omni-Man. They tear through the walls of the base, a cyclone of fists and fury. For a moment, it looks like he might have a chance. He's the Immortal. He cannot be killed, but he can be held. Mark slams into his back, wrapping his arms around the Immortal's chest, pinning his arms. A Viltrumite vice. The Immortal struggles, his legendary strength useless. He can only watch as Omni-Man floats before him, his eyes burning with cold fire. You're strong, Omni-Man says, but you're old, and you fight for nothing. He puts one hand on the Immortal's forehead, the other on his chin, and he pulls. The sound of tearing flesh and snapping bone echoes through the ruined base. And then, silence. Deep beneath the Pentagon, in the sterile command center of the Global Defense Agency, Cecil Stedman watches the monitors. One by one, the biosigns of Earth's greatest protectors have flatlined. Red, red, red. All red. His second-in-command, Donald Ferguson, stands beside him, his face pale. Cecil, what happened? Who could do this? Cecil doesn't answer. He just stares at the static, at the empty feeds. He's a man who plans for every contingency. Alien invasions, rogue superhumans, dimensional incursions. He has a file for everything, a plan for everyone. But not for this. This wasn't an attack. This was a message. An erasure. The board has been wiped clean. Every piece that could have stood in the way, gone. In minutes. Get me everything we have on Omni-Man, Cecil says, his voice dangerously quiet. Everything he's ever done. Every person he's ever saved. Every word he's ever said. Donald hesitates. Sir, you don't think... I don't think, Cecil interrupts, his eyes never leaving the screens. I know. The game has changed. The king and his new prince just took every single one of our pieces off the board. He leans forward, the harsh light of the monitors illuminating the deep scar on his jaw. And now we have to figure out how to play when we have nothing left. The world holds its breath. Days have passed since the Guardians of the Globe were extinguished, and in their place, a chilling silence has fallen. The sky feels empty, the cities vulnerable. It's a world without its protectors, a world waiting for the other shoe to drop. And you know what happens next. The sky doesn't just darken, it tears open. A shimmering, violent green wound splits the air above downtown Chicago. From it pours an army, green skin, 6 antennae twitching with malice. The Flaxons are back. But this time, there's no one to answer the call. There is no team scrambling, no guardians assembling. There is only the thunder of alien war machines hitting pavement and the symphony of a million screams. Lasers slice through skyscrapers. Buildings that have stood for a century crumble into dust in seconds. The invasion isn't a battle. It's a harvest. The Flaxon leader, a familiar scar bisecting his face, watches from his command ship, a cruel grin spreading across his features. Earth is ripe for the taking, defenseless, broken. But wait, a flicker of pink energy erupts over the chaos. A shield, shimmering like a soap bubble, catches a volley of plasma fire meant for a bus full of people. Descending from the clouds is a young woman in a form-fitting pink suit, an atomic symbol on her chest. Atom Eve. She's alone, outnumbered 1,000 to 1. She throws up walls, transmutes asphalt into giant grasping hands, fights with a desperate, beautiful fury. But for every soldier she stops, 10 more pour through the portal. She's not winning, she's just delaying the inevitable. And just as her energy ends to fade, just as the Flaxen horde closes in, 3 sonic booms shatter every window for a mile. They don't fly down, they drop, like meteors. The first to land is a man, a mountain. He's older, with graying hair and a thick mustache, his face a roadmap of ancient battles, dominated by a deep scar that crosses a blind white eye. He hits the ground with the force of an artillery shell, the concrete cratering beneath his boots. This is not a hero, this is a warrior, this is Conquest. Behind him, 2 teenagers, a boy and a girl, twins, barely 17. They land with the same impossible weight, their eyes wide but their bodies coiled, ready. They wear no costumes, no symbols, just the grim determination taught by a father who knows nothing but war. Conquest doesn't speak. He moves. He is a blur of white and grey, a force of nature tearing through the alien ranks. There is no style, no flair, only brutal, devastating efficiency. A punch doesn't just knock a Flaxen down, it liquefies it. A grab doesn't restrain, it tears limbs from sockets. He moves through the army like a combine harvester through wheat. His son, Marcus, follows his lead. He's fast, a ghost weaving through laser fire. He intercepts a Flaxen tank and crushes it into a ball of screaming metal. There's a flicker of fear in his eyes, the shock of his first real battle, but his father's training is a vice grip on his instincts. He fights. His daughter, Carla, is different. There is no fear in her, only fire. She meets the invaders head-on, a savage grin on her face. She moves with a terrifying grace, each kick shattering alien armor, each punch sending shockwaves through the enemy lines. Atom Eve just stares. She's seen power. She's stood next to Omni-Man. But this is different. This isn't a fight to protect. This is a fight to end. It's methodical. It's absolute. It's an eradication. Conquest points. Marcus, the portal generator. Carla, left flank. Do not let them regroup. His voice is a gravelly command that cuts through the explosions. The kids don't question. They obey, instantly. They move as a unit, a perfectly honed weapon system. They communicate without words, a glance, a nod. This isn't their first fight. This is just the first one the world has ever seen. The Flaxen leader screams orders from his ship, his voice laced with panic. Focus fire. Bring them down. It's useless. They are unstoppable. Conquest tears the wing off a gunship and uses it as a shield, wading through a storm of energy blasts without slowing down. He reaches the command ship, rips the cockpit open with his bare hands, and pulls the scarred leader out. There is no monologue, no villainous speech. Conquest looks the alien in its terrified eyes, and then he simply crushes its skull. He drops the body, turns around, and in under 5 minutes, the invasion is over. The remaining Flaxens scramble back through their portal in a desperate, panicked retreat. And then, silence. The 3 Viltrumites stand in the center of the devastation. They look at the destruction, at the cowering civilians, at Atom Eve, who is still floating, her mouth agape. Then, as quickly as they arrived, they are gone. 3 more sonic booms, and the sky is empty once more. Miles below the surface, in the sterile white halls of the Global Defense Agency, the world's most powerful man feels powerless. Cecil Stedman stares at a dozen monitors, each showing the same impossible scene. His face, usually a mask of cold calculation, is pale. The scar on his jaw seems deeper today. Beside him, his trusted agent Donald Ferguson can only whisper, "God, what was that?" Cecil doesn't answer immediately. He rewinds the footage, plays it again. He watches the man with the scarred face, the brutal efficiency, the sheer uncompromising power. He watches the 2 children, fighting with a skill that should take decades to master. That, Cecil says, his voice dangerously quiet, was a statement. He leans forward, his eyes locked on the screen. Omni-Man and his boy kill the Guardians, leaving us blind and defenseless. And days later, when a world-ending threat appears, these three show up? It's not a coincidence. Donald shakes his head. Sir, they're Viltrumites. They look just like Omni-Man. They could be the next wave. No, Cecil counters, pointing at the screen. Look, they didn't level the city. They minimized casualties. They targeted the enemy leadership, dismantled their army, and forced a retreat. That wasn't an invasion. That was a defense. A brutally violent, terrifying defense, but a defense nonetheless. He stands up, pacing the room. The gears are turning. The desperate calculations of a man with no good options left. We have 2 Viltrumites who have declared war on this planet by murdering its greatest heroes. And now we have 3 more who just saved Chicago. We are caught between gods, Donald, and we are insects. He stops pacing. His decision is made. Get me Robot, he commands. I don't care what he's doing. I need his mind. I need strategies, scenarios, how to fight a Viltrumite, how to kill a Viltrumite. Donald nods, already typing at a console. And sir? And get me the Maulers. Donald freezes. The Mauler twins, sir? They're criminals, genetic monstrosities. They are also the only geniuses on this planet, unethical enough to build what I need them to build, Cecil snaps. They understand biology, cloning, superhuman physiology. I need a weapon. I need a contingency. Get them. Give them whatever they want. This is the new game, a game played with monsters and gods, where the survival of humanity is the prize. Cecil is no longer a director. He is a gambler, pushing all his chips onto the table. He walks to his private terminal, dismissing Donald with a wave. He pulls up a satellite image, tracking the energy signature left by the 3 saviors. It leads him to a place so mundane, so impossibly normal. It has to be the right one. A small, unassuming farmhouse in the middle of rural Nebraska. He stares at the image of the farmhouse. Inside is a man who could shatter the planet. A man who might be their only hope. A man who might be their final doom. Cecil opens a secure channel. He knows this call could be the last one he ever makes. He knows he might be inviting the devil in, just to chase a demon out. But he has no other cards to play. The line connects. A quiet voice, weathered and deep, answers on the other end. Hello? Cecil takes a breath. The fate of the world rests on his next words. My name is Cecil Stedman, he says, his voice steady, betraying none of the terror and desperation churning inside him. I believe you and I have a common enemy, and I'd like to propose an alliance. Weeks have passed since Cecil Stedman's desperate plea. An uneasy quiet has settled over the planet. In the shadows, an alliance is forged. On a farm, a family trains, and in a suburban home, a father and son wait for the perfect moment to strike. But the cosmos doesn't wait. Out in the silent velvet blackness of space, a ship glides through the void. It's not a warship, not a cruiser. It's a scout vessel, piloted by a single being. He is large, orange-skinned, with one massive, curious eye scanning the instruments before him. This is Alan the Alien, an evaluation officer for the Coalition of Planets. His job is simple: travel the galaxy, find warriors strong enough to stand against the Viltrum Empire, and test them. His ship slows as it enters Earth's orbit. The planet below is a swirl of blue and white, beautiful, unassuming. Alan's single eye narrows, his scanner beeping. He's found a Viltrumite energy signature. Strong, potent. He smiles. Maybe, just maybe, this is the one. The champion the Coalition has been searching for. He opens a channel. Attention, champion of Earth. His voice is calm, professional. My name is Alan. I'm here for your scheduled evaluation. Please present yourself. He waits. The silence stretches. And then the silence breaks, not with a voice, but with a sound like a thunderclap ripping through the vacuum of space. A blur of red and white smashes through the cockpit of Alan's ship. Glass shatters. Metal screams. Alan is ripped from his seat before he can even process what's happening. He's outside, floating in the cold, staring into the emotionless blue eyes of Omni-Man. Before a word can be spoken, a second figure appears, Younger, dressed in yellow and blue, Mark Grayson hits Alan from the side like a freight train. A sickening crack echoes in the silence as Alan's bones break. This isn't an evaluation, this is an execution. Omni-Man grabs Alan by the head, his grip like a vice. "You were looking for a champion," he says, his voice a low, terrifying rumble. "You found two." Mark laughs, a cruel, sharp sound. He drives his fist into Alan's gut, again and again. Each blow is a sonic boom, devastating, overwhelming. Alan is a warrior, bred for battle. But this is different. This is Viltrumite fury, pure and undiluted. He tries to fight back, to throw a punch, but his arm is caught, twisted, and broken. He screams, a telepathic shriek of agony that goes nowhere. "My son is learning," Omni-Man says, almost conversationally, as he holds the broken Unipan still. "He needs the practice. Show him what you've learned, Mark." Mark smiles, a predator's smile. He pulls his arm back, ready to deliver the final, obliterating blow. This is it. This is how the Coalition's scout dies, a footnote in the conquest of another world. But wait, something is coming. From the planet below, 3 streaks of light, ascending faster than a missile. Faster than anything Alan has ever seen outside of a Viltrumite. They're closing the distance in seconds. Omni-Man sees them. His eyes widen, not in fear, but in pure, unadulterated rage. He knows those energy signatures. He knows him. The first one to arrive is a mountain. An old, scarred warrior with balding grey hair, a thick mustache, and a prosthetic arm that gleams in the starlight. A deep, jagged scar runs across his face, blinding one eye. This is not the hero Earth knows. This is not the farmer named Carl. This is Conquest. And he is not alone. Flanking him are 2 younger figures, a boy and a girl, twins, their faces a mask of grim determination. They wear no costumes, just simple, durable clothing. They are Marcus and Carla, and they have their father's eyes. "Nolan," Conquest growls, his voice like grinding stone. "You were told to be discreet." Omni-Man shoves Alan's broken body aside. "Discretion is over, Conquest. Your little pets have made that impossible. You chose this planet over your people. A foolish, sentimental mistake. Now I need you to understand something. What happens next? It changes everything. This isn't a back-alley brawl. This isn't a secret war fought in the shadows anymore. This is the first open battle of the Viltrumite Civil War, and it's happening in orbit, for anyone with a powerful enough telescope to see." Conquest doesn't waste time with words. He launches himself at Omni-Man. It's a collision of titans, 2 veteran Viltrumites, 2 of the Empire's most legendary warriors, meeting after decades of Cold War. The shockwave of their first punch ripples through space. Omni-Man is grace and precision. Every move is perfect, economical, designed to kill. Conquest is a berserker. He is pure, unstoppable force. He swings his prosthetic arm, a meteor hammer of alien metal, and Omni-Man barely dodges, the blow shearing off a piece of a nearby satellite. While the fathers fight, the children engage. Mark Grayson, arrogant and empowered, flies straight for Marcus. "You're just a farmer's boy," he spits, throwing a punch meant to shatter bone. But Marcus is ready. He's been training for this his entire life. He doesn't meet the punch head-on. He deflects it, using Mark's own momentum against him, and slams an elbow into the side of Mark's head. At the same time, Carla attacks from the blind spot. She's a blur of motion, landing a dozen rapid-fire blows to Mark's back and kidneys. They fight as one unit, a perfectly coordinated team, against a single powerful opponent. Mark roars in frustration. He's stronger. He knows he is. But they're smarter. They're a team. He unleashes a wild haymaker, and Carla ducks under it, grabbing his arm while Marcus drives a knee into his chest. They're not trying to kill him. They're trying to contain him, to neutralize him. It's the way their father taught them, fight to protect, not to conquer. Meanwhile, the battle between legends rages. Omni-Man lands a devastating blow to Conquest's jaw. "You've gone soft, old man," he yells. "Living with these insects has weakened you." Conquest just spits out a black tooth and grins, his crooked teeth showing. "And you've gotten predictable, Nolan. You still think strength is all that matters." He grabs Omni-Man, pulling him into a headbutt that cracks Nolan's perfect face. He uses his experience, his grit, his sheer stubborn refusal to die. He fights like a cornered animal because that's what he is. He's defending his home, his family. The battle is a stalemate, a brutal, chaotic, world-shaking stalemate. Mark can't land a decisive blow on the twins, and they can't put him down. Omni-Man and Conquest are too evenly matched, their long history making them privy to every feint, every strategy. This isn't a fight he can win quickly. And it's a fight happening in plain view, a public spectacle. It ruins the plan. He shoves Conquest back, creating a precious second of distance. "Mark, to me," he commands. Mark, bleeding from his nose and lip, breaks away from the twins, flying to his father's side. The two pairs of Viltrumites face each other across the void. Father and son against father, son, and daughter. A dark mirror. "This isn't over," Omni-Man snarls, his pristine suit now scuffed and torn. "This little rebellion of yours ends now." And with that, he and Mark turn, rocketing away, back towards the planet's surface, disappearing into the atmosphere. They didn't win, but they didn't lose. They made a statement. Silence returns to orbit. Conquest floats, breathing heavily, his knuckles bleeding. His children drift to his side, their adrenaline fading, replaced by the terrifying realization of what just happened. They look at their father, then at the broken alien, floating nearby. Alan the alien groans, his body a canvas of pain. Conquest gently drifts over, supporting him. "Are you?" Alan manages, his one eye struggling to focus on the scarred Viltrumite. "He was my comrade," Conquest says, his voice heavy with a history of violence. "We were sent here together. He chose the Empire. I chose this." He gestures to the blue marble below them, to his children. Alan processes this. Let that sink in. The coalition of planets has spent centuries searching for a weapon against the Viltrumites. They thought they were a monolith, an unstoppable unified force of nature. But they're not. They're broken. They're fighting amongst themselves. This changes the entire galactic war. "I have to report this," Alan says, his voice gaining strength, urgency. "The coalition needs to know. They need to know there's a faction of Viltrumites fighting for life, not for conquest. They need to know about you." Conquest nods slowly. "Go. Tell them. Tell them Earth is not free for the taking. Tell them it has a protector." Alan gives a single solemn nod. He struggles back to what's left of his ship, the emergency systems kicking in, sealing the breach. With a final look at the family floating in space, his vessel turns and limps away into the deep dark, carrying a message of hope, wrapped in a warning of impending war. Carl looks at his children, Marcus and Carla. They're shaking, but they stand tall. They just had their first real fight, against their own people. He puts a hand on each of their shoulders. The silence between them says everything. The quiet life is over. The war has come home. Far below on the surface, Nolan Grayson lands, not at his home, but at a secure location. He is seething. The mask of the calm, heroic Omni-Man is gone, burned away by rage. His plan was elegant. Infiltrate, weaken, indoctrinate his son. Take the planet from within, with minimal damage, a jewel to be presented to the Empire. But Conquest, Carl, has ruined it. He made it a public brawl. He revealed their hand. He showed the world, and anyone else who was watching, that there were two sides. That Omni-Man was not unopposed. Nolan looks at his son Mark, whose face is a mixture of anger and confusion. "Father, what now?" They know. Nolan's fists clench, the sound of grinding knuckles echoing in the room. The time for subtlety is over. The time for lies and deception is done. Conquest wants a war. He wants to stand with the insects of this planet. Fine. Nolan will give him a war. He won't just break Earth's heroes. He won't just weaken its defenses. He will burn it all to the ground, and he will make Carl watch. The charade is over. The charade is over. The conquest begins now. And it does not begin with a speech. It does not begin with a warning. It begins in the cold, dead silence of space. The next day, as the sun crests over the curve of the Earth, two figures ascend. Father and son, Omni-Man and Mark Grayson. They rise not as heroes, but as reapers. Their target? The nervous system of human civilization. The network of satellites that stitches the globe together. The first one shatters without a sound. A silent explosion of metal and wire. Omni-Man doesn't even slow down. He is a blur of blue and white, a living missile tearing through the orbital field. Mark is right behind him, a yellow and black echo of his father's wrath. He moves with a brutal efficiency, a chilling precision for a boy his age. He punches through a communications relay, watches it tumble away into the void, and feels nothing. Just the cold satisfaction of a job well done. Down on the surface, the world blinks. A news broadcast in Tokyo cuts to static. A video call between a soldier and his family in Germany freezes, then dies. Stock markets flicker and flatline. The internet, the great web of human connection, begins to fray, then snap, continent by continent. It's a systematic, calculated decapitation. Faster, stronger, unstoppable. They move from communications to observation. Spy satellites are crushed like tin cans. Weather trackers are vaporized. The planet's eyes are being plucked out, one by one. And then they turn to the weapons. Military bases, hidden deep in deserts and carved into mountains, suddenly find themselves with visitors from above. A missile silo in Siberia is peeled open, its deadly contents twisted into scrap metal. An aircraft carrier in the Pacific is lifted from the water and snapped in half over Omni-Man's knee. This isn't a fight. This is pest control. Every major military on the planet is neutered in less than an hour. They don't just disarm humanity, they humiliate it. They show the world that its walls are made of paper, its swords are made of straw, and its gods are here to burn it all down. And as they hang in the sky, watching the chaos they've sown, Mark looks to his father, not with fear, but with pride. He has passed the test. The lesson is complete. But while the world is being blinded, one man is finally beginning to see. In a quiet, unassuming tailor shop in the city, a place that smells of chalk and old fabric, Arthur Rosenbaum works late into the night. Art, the man who stitches the capes, the man who designs the symbols of hope. For years, he's been Nolan's friend, his confidant, the creator of the very suit that now stands as a symbol of terror. He has the suit, the one Nolan wore during the fight with the alien Alan. It's damaged, scuffed, and stained. Art runs a small scanner over a dark patch on the white fabric of the chest. He's looking for answers. The Guardian's deaths. It never sat right. It was too fast, too clean, and too final. No one could do that. Almost no one. The machine beeps. A DNA sequence appears on his monitor. Art leans in, his friendly face etched with a deep, creeping dread. He runs the sample against a database, a private one containing the genetic markers of every hero he's ever worked with. He waits. The progress bar crawls across the screen. He tells himself it's nothing. A stray sample from the alien, collateral damage. He's just being paranoid. He has to be. Because the alternative is unthinkable. The screen flashes, match found. Art's blood runs cold. He stares at the name next to the sample. It's not Alan the alien. It's not some unknown villain. It's a name he knows, a name he trusts. War Woman. His hands tremble. He moves the scanner to another stain, near the glove, a microscopic splatter of red. He runs the analysis again. The machine hums its quiet, terrible song. And again, the screen flashes. Match found. One by one he finds them. Green Ghost, Darkwing, the Immortal, all of them. Their last moments, their very essence, smeared across the costume of the man who called them his friends, the man who called him a friend. Art pushes himself away from the desk, his chair scraping against the floor. He stumbles back, his breath catching in his throat. The symbol on the suit's chest, the stylized O, it doesn't look like a symbol of hope anymore. It looks like a gaping maw, a black hole that swallowed the world's greatest heroes whole. And he, Art Rosenbaum, was the one who stitched it on. Back at the Grayson house, the silence is heavier than stone. Debbie stands in the living room. The TV is dead. The phone is dead. She saw it. She saw them. Two streaks in the sky, moving with impossible speed. And then, The world went quiet. She knows. She doesn't have DNA evidence. She doesn't have a smoking gun. She has something far worse. She has the cold, empty look in her son's eyes. The front door is untouched. They don't use doors anymore. They simply appear. A whisper of displaced air, and they're standing there. Nolan in his blood-stained suit, and Mark, a dark reflection of his father. Debbie's voice is shaking, but she holds her ground. "What have you done?" Mark scoffs. He walks to the fridge, pulling out a carton of milk as if he just got home from school. "What needed to be done? We're showing them their place." "Their place?" Debbie's voice cracks. "Mark, these are people, your friends. You went to high school yesterday. Now you're helping him destroy everything." "They're not my friends," Mark says, his voice flat, emotionless. He takes a long drink from the carton. "They're insects. Dad was right all along. I was just too weak to see it." Debbie turns to her husband, the man she loved, the man she built a life with. "Nolan, look at him. Look at what you've done to our son. This isn't him, this is you." Nolan stands perfectly still. His expression is unreadable. For a moment, just a moment, Debbie sees a flicker of the man she married, but it vanishes as quickly as it came. "You're wrong," Nolan says, his voice a low rumble. "This is exactly who he is, who he was always meant to be. Strong, uncompromising, a Viltrumite. He's a 17-year-old boy," she screams, tears finally breaking free. "And you are his father. You were supposed to protect him." "I am," Nolan says, taking a step closer. "I'm protecting him from this world's weakness, from your weakness." He gestures around the pristine living room, the family photos, the comfortable furniture, the life they built. "You think this was real, this life, this family?" He lets out a short, bitter laugh. It's the cruelest sound Debbie has ever heard. "I've lived for thousands of your years, Debbie. I've watched entire civilizations rise and fall. You are not a wife. You are a pet. An entertaining one, I'll admit. You gave me a son. You have my gratitude. But your purpose is served." The words hit her harder than any physical blow. Pet. The life she cherished, the love she felt, all of it, reduced to an amusement, a phase. "So what now?" she whispers, her defiance crumbling into ash. "Are you going to kill me too? Like you killed the Guardians?" Mark looks over from the kitchen, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. But Nolan simply shakes his head. "No, killing you would be a mercy, and it might distract Mark. No, you will stay here, in this house." He looks around the room again, but his gaze is different now. He's not seeing a home, he's seeing a container, a cell. "You will not leave, you will not contact anyone. You will watch as we reshape this planet into something worthy of the Viltrum Empire. You will be a witness to our glory." He turns to leave, his cape sweeping through the air. Mark follows without a second glance at his mother. Debbie Grayson is left alone, standing in the middle of her living room. The windows, which once let in the sunlight, now feel like the bars of a cage. The walls, which once held a family's laughter, are now the boundaries of her prison. She is a ghost in her own home, a relic of a life that was never real. Outside, Omni-Man rises into the sky. He has broken the world's voice. He has broken its will, and now he will speak. He prepares to tap into the emergency broadcast systems, the one network he left intact. The planet is silent, waiting, and for the first time, everyone is about to hear the true voice of their savior. Every screen on the planet flickers to life. Every phone, every television, every digital billboard. They all show one thing. A man floating in the upper atmosphere, arms crossed, looking down at the world he once pretended to protect. There is no sound but the faint hum of the emergency broadcast signal. And then, he speaks. Omni-Man's voice isn't a shout, it's a declaration. Calm, absolute. It echoes in every home, every bunker, every corner of the globe. People of Earth, for 2 decades I have lived among you, I have watched you, I have judged you. You are inefficient. You fight, you kill, you squander the gifts of a beautiful world. Your time governing yourselves is over. The words land like stones. There's no negotiation, no plea. This is a statement of fact. I am from Viltrum. My people are coming. We will fix your world. We will end your wars. We will silence your dissent. We will bring order. Your governments are dissolved. Your armies are obsolete. Your lives now belong to us. You will accept this new order. You will obey, or you will be removed. A global collective breath is held. This isn't a threat. This is a promise. You have 1 hour to surrender your planet. The choice is not yours to make. The broadcast cuts out. Silence returns. But it's a different kind of silence now. It's the silence of a world with a gun to its head. But in a small farmhouse in Nebraska, the television is met with a different sound. The sound of a fist clenching. Carl stands there, his wife Sarah beside him, her hand on his arm. In the doorway, Marcus and Carla, his children, look at their father. They've never seen this look on his face before. Not the gentle farmer, not the loving dad. This is the look of a warrior who has just heard the drums of a war he thought he'd left behind. "Kids," Carl says, his voice a low rumble. "Get ready. He's chosen Chicago." He doesn't have to explain how he knows. He just knows. 2 Viltrumite conquerors always pick the same kind of stage, a big one. And just like that, the war for Earth begins. The sky over Chicago cracks open, not with thunder, with sonic booms. On one side, Omni-Man and his son, Mark Grayson, descend like twin meteors, clad in the arrogance of their empire. On the other, Conquest arrives, flanked by his 2 children and a glowing pink comet that is Atom Eve. They meet in the air, 1,000 feet above the city streets. For a moment, there is absolute stillness. The wind whips around them. Below, the city is in chaos, people fleeing for their lives. But up here, it's a moment between gods and monsters. Omni-Man looks at Conquest. The thick mustache, the cold blue eyes. He sees a traitor. Carl, he spits the human name like venom. "You chose them. You chose insects over your own blood." Conquest's expression is granite. "You call this blood?" he says, gesturing to Mark, whose face is a mask of cold fury. "You made him a weapon." "I made a family. There's a difference, Nolan." And that's it. The time for words is over. Omni-Man moves first. He doesn't charge. He simply appears. In front of Conquest. The air explodes. This isn't a fight. This is a collision of epochs. 2 Viltrumites with thousands of years of combat coded into their DNA. Every punch is a shockwave that shatters windows for miles. Every block is a thunderclap. They aren't throwing wild haymakers. This is a duel. A brutal, efficient, veteran's dance of death. Omni-Man drives a fist into Conquest's gut. The force of it should liquefy a mountain. Conquest just grunts, grabs Nolan's arm, and uses his momentum to hurl him through the side of a skyscraper. The building groans, twists, and begins to collapse in on itself. But while the titans clash, another war is being fought just feet away. Mark Grayson barrels toward the others. He is a storm, and he aims right for Marcus. But Marcus isn't alone. He and his sister, Carla, move as one. They've trained for this their entire lives, sparring in the fields of Nebraska. They meet Mark's charge together. Marcus takes the impact head-on, his arms crossed, a human shield. The blow sends him careening backwards, but he holds. He absorbs it, and that gives Carla her opening. She comes in low and fast, driving her shoulder into Mark's side. He stumbles, surprised by their coordination. He expected 2 frightened children. He found 2 soldiers. "You're just like him," Mark snarls, his eyes burning. "Weak. Sentimental." He recovers, lashing out with a backhand that catches Carla across the face, sending her spiraling away. But as he turns to finish Marcus, a wall of brilliant pink energy erupts in front of him. A shield, hard as diamond. Atom Eve hovers there, her hands glowing. "Get away from them," she says, her voice steady, betraying none of the terror she feels. Mark just laughs. He punches the shield. Once, it cracks. Twice, it shatters into a million glittering shards. "You can't stop us. This world is ours." He lunges for her. But Marcus is back, tackling him from the side. Carla is there a second later, grabbing his leg. It's a desperate, frantic battle. 3 against 1. And they are barely holding on. Mark is a force of nature. He's not just fighting them. He's trying to break them, to prove his father's ideology right with every single devastating blow. Deep underground, in the GDA headquarters, Cecil Stedman watches it all on a dozen screens. The city is being torn apart. His face is grim, scarred, but his eyes are focused. He's not panicked. He's playing the only hand he has left. "Donald," he says into his comms. "They're engaged. Do it." In a GDA bunker miles away, Donald Ferguson nods. "All units. Target confirmed. Fire. The hammer." Now, you need to understand something. The GDA has been planning for this, for Nolan's betrayal. They knew conventional weapons were useless, so they built something unconventional. Something that doesn't target the body. It targets the very thing that makes a Viltrumite fly. From hidden silos around Chicago, massive energy cannons rise from the ground. They don't fire beams. They don't fire missiles. They emit a low subsonic frequency, a vibration that ripples through the air. It's invisible. It's silent. But for the 5 Viltrumites in the sky, it's agony. It hits their inner ears. The complex balancing system that allows them to fly, it's being scrambled, torn apart. Omni-Man is the first to roar in pain. He's in the middle of driving Conquest through the floor of another building when the wave hits. His flight falters. He feels a sudden, violent vertigo. For a split second he's falling, not flying, falling. Conquest feels it too, a nauseating wave of disorientation. But he's more grounded, in more ways than one. He grits his teeth, powers through the pain, and slams his fists into Omni-Man's head while he's vulnerable. Mark screams. He clutches his temples, his flight pattern becoming erratic. He swerves wildly, crashing through a bridge support. Marcus and Carla feel it too, a sharp, stabbing pain that makes the world spin. Atom Eve sees her chance. While Mark is disoriented, she wraps him in tendrils of pink energy, thick as bridge cables, trying to hold him down. "Now," she yells. Marcus and Carla dive, ignoring the ringing in their skulls. They slam into Mark, a 3-person battering ram, driving him down, 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 out of the sky and into the concrete jungle below. The impact is devastating. They crash through the roof of a bus station, the sound a deafening crunch of metal and stone. Cecil watches the screen. "Status report." "It's working, sir," an agent yells. "Their flight is compromised. But the cannons are overheating. We can't maintain the frequency for long. Keep it up for as long as you can," Cecil barks. But Omni-Man is not so easily grounded. He roars, a sound of pure, undiluted rage. He ignores the pain, the vertigo. He forces his body to obey his will. He grabs Conquest by the throat and flies straight up, dragging him out of the frequency's effective range. "Tricks," he bellows, slamming Conquest back down towards the earth. "Insects and their tricks. I will burn this planet to the ground." The fight is no longer a duel. It's a brawl, a desperate, bloody war of attrition. Omni-Man and Conquest crash back into the heart of the city, their battle leveling entire blocks. A punch from Conquest sends Omni-Man skidding down a mile of roadway, carving a trench in the asphalt. A retaliatory blast of speed from Omni-Man puts his fist through Conquest's shoulder, drawing dark Viltrumite blood. Below, the fight is just as brutal. Mark tears himself free from Eve's constructs and his cousin's grip. He's on the ground now, and he is a nightmare. He moves with blinding speed, his fists a blur. He breaks Marcus's arm with a sickening crack. He hurls Carla through a line of parked cars. He is fury unleashed. But they don't stop. They get up, battered, bleeding, but they get up. Eve creates barriers, constructs, anything to slow him down, to protect the others. Marcus, cradling his broken arm, uses his good one to land a staggering blow to Mark's jaw. Carla, bruised but defiant, tackles him again. They are losing, badly, but they are not broken. The city is a war zone. Smoke chokes the sky. The screams of the dying are drowned out by the sonic booms of gods at war. The GDA's cannons flicker and die, their sacrifice buying only moments. Omni-Man and Conquest stand in a crater of their own making, chests heaving, uniforms torn, faces smeared with blood and grime. Mark stands over the broken forms of his cousins, with Atom Eve the only one left standing against him, her own energy shield faltering. Both sides are battered, both sides are bleeding. The opening salvo is over, and no one has won. The battle for Earth has just begun, and the cost is already a city in ruins. The question is no longer who will win, it's what will be left when they're finished. The smoke is thick enough to taste. The air over Chicago is a toxic soup of pulverized concrete, ash, and the metallic tang of blood. The thunderous impacts have ceased, replaced by an unnerving silence, broken only by the crackle of 1,000 fires and the distant wail of sirens that sound like ghosts. Omni-Man hangs in the air, his chest heaving. His suit is torn, his face a mask of crimson. He looks down at his son. Mark is a wreck. One arm hangs at an impossible angle. His breathing is a ragged, wet gurgle. He's conscious, but only just. Across the chasm of what was once a city block, Conquest stands, battered, bleeding from a dozen wounds, but standing, flanked by his children and the blowing pink form of Atom Eve. 4 against 2, and one of his 2 is broken. Nolan is not a fool. He is a conqueror of worlds, a veteran of 1,000 years of war. He knows when a battle is won, when it is lost, and when it is simply unwinnable. Right now, this is unwinnable. To press the attack is to risk everything, to risk Mark. He makes the call. Without a word, he wraps an arm around his son's chest, pulling the boy's limp form against him. He doesn't look at Conquest. He doesn't offer a final threat. That would be a sign of weakness, an admission of frustration. Instead, he just leaves. A blur of red and blue, streaking away from the devastation, climbing higher and higher until he is a speck against the bruised evening sky. He doesn't lose. He postpones his victory. But for the people on the ground, for the heroes floating in the ruins, it feels like a win. A horribly, brutally expensive win. Carl lets out a breath he didn't know he was holding. The warrior's adrenaline begins to fade, replaced by a deep, bone-aching exhaustion. Every muscle screams. He feels the thrum of his own blood leaking from a gash over his eye. He looks at his children. Marcus has a split lip, and his knuckles are raw. Carla is supporting herself on a piece of rebar, jutting from a collapsed skyscraper, her face grim. They fought a Viltrumite, a true, fully powered Viltrumite, trained by Nolan himself, and they survived. They held the line. He is so unbelievably proud, and so terrified. Eve descends beside them, her pink energy field shimmering. The fight is gone from her eyes, replaced with a profound sadness. She looks out over the city, her city. "I can help," she says, her voice barely a whisper. Her hands glow, and a support beam on a teetering office building solidifies, the concrete knitting itself back together. She sends out another wave of energy, smothering a fire raging in what used to be a hospital. It's like trying to empty the ocean with a bucket. "You've done enough, Eve," Carl says, his voice a low rumble. He drifts over to his daughter, placing a heavy hand on her shoulder. "We all have." Marcus looks at his father, his young face etched with a maturity it didn't have this morning. "He's coming back, isn't he?" Carl doesn't answer immediately. He just stares at the horizon, where Omni-Man vanished. He watches the smoke rise from the grave of a city. He feels the weight of thousands of years of battle settle on his shoulders. This wasn't the end. This wasn't even the beginning of the end. This was the first punch in a fight to the death. "Yes," Carl says, his voice hard as iron. "He is." And for the first time, his children understand the true meaning of their heritage. They are not just kids from a farm. They are the shield. They are the wall. And the hammer of the Viltrum Empire is about to fall upon them. Miles away, the pristine lawn of the Grayson home is gone. The house itself is a splintered, gaping wound in the earth. The attack was surgical, precise, not meant to level the neighborhood, but to shatter a single life. GDA helicopters circle overhead, their searchlights cutting through the dust. On the ground, teams in white containment suits move through the wreckage. Donald Ferguson stands at the edge of the crater, his face unreadable behind his sunglasses. He listens to the chatter on his radio. No sign of her in the main structure. Check the lower level, what's left of it. It was Nolan's final act before the battle. A message, a punishment. He didn't kill his wife. He entombed her. One of the agents calls out, "Sir, over here, we have her." Donald moves quickly, his steps sure-footed on the unstable debris. They found her in the reinforced panic room Nolan had built years ago. The The door was ripped from its hinges, the interior a wreck. And sitting on the floor, amidst the overturned furniture and shattered monitors, is Debbie Grayson. She's physically unharmed, not a scratch on her. But her eyes are vacant. She stares straight ahead, through the agents, through the ruins of her home, through the world itself. She doesn't blink. She doesn't react when they speak her name. She doesn't flinch when they shine a light in her eyes. The woman who fell in love with a god from the stars. The woman who raised a son. The woman whose entire reality was a lie, built to create a weapon. That woman is gone. All that's left is a shell. Donald kneels down. He takes off his sunglasses. For a moment the cold, calculating agent is gone, and you see just a man, looking at the casualty of a war he is hopelessly unprepared for. "Debbie," he says, his voice gentle, "it's over. We're here to help." There's no response, nothing. He motions to the medics. They carefully lift her onto a stretcher, her gaze never changing. As they carry her away from the wreckage of her life, Donald puts his sunglasses back on. The mask is back in place. Cecil will need a full report. The collateral damage needs to be assessed. But he knows that some things, once broken, can never be put back together. Nolan and Mark didn't just destroy buildings in Chicago. They destroyed a family. They destroyed a soul. And that is a crime that Earth might never be able to answer. The sun sets. The stars begin to appear over a small, quiet farm in the middle of nowhere. The air here is clean. It smells of soil and hay, not smoke and death. On the porch of a simple farmhouse, a family stands together. Carl is there, his arm wrapped around his wife, Sarah. She holds him tightly, her face buried in his shoulder. She didn't ask for this life. She fell in love with a kind, quiet man with a mysterious past. Now she knows that past is an empire of killers, and her husband is the only thing standing in its way. Marcus and Carla stand beside them. They've cleaned up. The cuts and bruises are stark against their skin. They look up at the night sky, but they're not looking at the constellations anymore. They're searching, watching, listening. This farm, this little patch of earth, was their sanctuary, their escape from a destiny Carl tried to leave behind. But now, it's a command post. It's the front line. Carl looks at his family, his wife, the human heart that taught a Viltrumite conqueror how to love, his children, born of two worlds, now the inheritors of a galactic war. He chose this life. He chose them. He chose Earth. And Nolan chose Empire. He chose power. He chose to turn his own son into a monster. The lines have been drawn. This world has survived its first test. It bled, it broke, but it did not bow. And as long as this family draws breath, it never will. Carl pulls his wife and children closer. They are a tiny island of defiance in an ocean of darkness. They won today, but let that sink in. Nolan is out there. Mark is out there. They are healing. They are planning. And the Viltrum Empire, an unstoppable force that has conquered 10,000 worlds, now knows that Earth fights back. They are no longer sending an evaluator. Next time, they will send an army.